Okay.
Hey everybody, we
Okay.
are live. Can you hear me, Angela?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't know
Okay.
from what
Yeah.
source. Um, yeah, this one is detonated kaput. Okay, hold on. So we're gonna have to just go, guys. Hold on. Let me close this so I can just even stop this because I don't know what sources are going there. The forces are. Am I in real time? Tell me if I'm in real time.
Yes, you appear to be. I'm actually trying to look at you on
Well, while you do
Facebook.
that, hey everybody, it is an episode
Yeah,
of Leading
you're
Women
good.
Weekly. We're trying to lead you this week. So much going on. I apparently started having tech issues 2 minutes before showtime. And so I'm looking up in the sky because the laptop is like, no, I'm not participating in the day. So I'm going to take this away. Angela, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do a little bit of intro while I switch in, switch out
Okay,
the
doke.
technology here
Well,
and bringing that closer.
while Yolanda's getting set up, she's Yolanda Lattimore with Dryer Buzz. She is the queen of soaps. So you can see here, she's broadcasting from her soap studio. She is also a trailblazing blogger, social media activist, clubhouse the proficientaire. I'm Angela Stallcup. I'm supposed to do this. I'm Angela. I'm a communication and social sciences scholar. How about that? I'm going to start saying that. And together we are Leading Women Wednesday, coming to you talking about all things related to leadership and women. And we occasionally have a leading man on with us. And this, I think that our technical difficulties are basically what our entire planet is experiencing. At least our country right now is experiencing technical difficulties. Please bear with us. America just needs to have a sign on it. Please bear with us. 404 error. We will get to you in a week, right? So this is, and just to lead in, we're going to talk about, and like, I said something out my mouth, Yolanda jumped on it, and so we're going to be talking about white
All
women
right, I'm
weaponizing their
supposed to
men.
be I'm supposed to be
So
quiet this week, right?
I don't know what you're supposed to be, honey, but we're gonna get into it. But we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on
Wow.
before we jump into
Okay.
the meat of white supremacy, to what we're seeing, to the role of women, because we have I'm talking about white
We're
women
doing all
weaponizing.
that.
We're going to do all that, and I'm tired. I didn't sleep good last night. I haven't slept good in a while. So we're going to see
But are
we're going
you
to see what we
listening?
do. Oh my goodness.
Were you listening to the play?
Yolanda, I'm looking
I
across the room. There is a
at
lizard.
TV.
There's a lizard.
Oh, another lizard.
There's another
Is
lizard.
it the mother or the kids?
It's another little one. And I've been hearing something moving I think it's been here for a while. I'm like, I keep hearing little sounds. And I'm like, what is rustling over there? And, I'm like, oh, okay. All
Okay, our
righty. Now
audience is probably like, "What's going on with these ladies this week?"
I have to make a decision, Yolanda. I
Let
can see
live
him. No, I'm not
as
going to
long as
try to
it
catch
doesn't
him.
come towards you.
No, I mean, I was like, I
Yeah.
could catch him right now, but I'm just going to leave him. I'm just, oh,
So
oh,
you need to leave the shop. This is what.
I'm not,
This is what.
I'm,
This is
I'm,
2021.
I'm not afraid of him. Thankfully, I'm not afraid. I just watched it try to jump and it just fell. So it's fine. I will go after him
Okay,
later.
it's.
But
We'll know
this
if it comes
is,
up your leg. If
if it
you
comes
have.
up my
Okay.
leg, viewer, you will know. Yeah, but I'm not scared of them. I grew up in a house. My one of my brothers loved
Mm-hmm.
animals, and he and my mom well, my dad went along with whatever, but my mom, God bless her, encouraged his interest in animals, and he went through a phase where he was very interested in snakes and reptiles. And so he had
Mm-hmm.
snakes and lizards in the house, and his bedroom, he and I had bedrooms in the basement of the house, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody else was on the third floor. So his little creatures would get out and come into my room, so I'd come in and there's an iguana, and I'd come in there as a snake. So I still don't like a snake in the house, but I got used to having lizards in the house,
Okay, so you're good. You're
so
good.
I'm fine.
All right, guys, let's try to do a little bit of a reset. We, like I said, we had technical difficulties, which is why I'm looking up at you guys as opposed to straight across the eye level. My laptop is here, and literally, I was sitting here waiting, and all of a sudden, it went dead, and so that's going on. Grab my trusted joystick. They outfit us for our hands-free streaming
Mm-hmm.
devices, and so I was able to put my phone there. So on my phone, so I don't know how much we're getting. I don't remember if I hit to go live here or if I hit to go live. I don't know where I
We're
hit
live. We're
for us
live.
to go
We're
live.
live on. We are live on Facebook. We are live on
Well, I
Facebook.
know
So,
we're there, but
oh, you
I
don't
don't
know if
know if
we're
I
live
can
anywhere
switch.
else?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, no, I don't know what where I'm controlling this. I don't know if I'm on here as the producer or a guest. So I'm not
Oh,
going to
oh,
touch
what?
anything else. As
Yes.
Angela said, very deep and in-depth conversation. If we have torn you away from the congressional hearings that are going on, you
You're
guys
welcome.
get a sense of some of the people that were voted for.
Uh huh.
I don't know how this day is going to end, but it is absolutely insanity. Listening to these people that you guys, I think we're good in Georgia. I don't know what y'all have been voting for consistently. I will say I am liking that there are some younger faces as well as some of the veterans that have been there forever. And but it is absolute insanity. The people that want to stand and still support Trump. I'm like if you believe that this was nothing, why did you run and hide? Why didn't you
Right.
stay on the Senate floor or the House floor?
Yeah.
Why did you need to take cover? These are your folk, right?
Right.
Oh, they were not able to tell y'all apart because they don't know who you are, just like many of us don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Um, but listening to these arguments, it's absolutely insane that we even in this moment still can't say what's wrong and what's right and whether it benefits the people or not. There was nothing about what happened in Congress. But you're not going to tell me that those people represented the half of the country that supported Trump because they don't, right?
Yeah.
So the arguments and debates. I'm like, damn, and it comes back to the question: who gave birth to these people? Angela's going to tell us.
Yeah. Well, that's
Angela
it.
had me thinking. She made a comment, and you guys, we've been telling y'all about Clubhouse, and so I launched a room on Clubhouse called "Feed Your Dreams," Breakfast with Dryer Buzz, and so we're there Tuesday through Saturday mornings, 8 to 10. It's almost like a damn morning show, right,
It
Angela?
is. I mean, it's it's
It
the Today
is.
Show. Yeah.
Absolutely. So from 8 to 10, and so we've been having some in-depth conversations there, and we like, okay, well, Angela and I, we will kind of bring some of that here for Leading Women Weekly, and so we were thinking about, I mean, if you think about where we were the last 4 years with the Karens and the Hello 911, calling
Right.
911, and so Angela made a comment that, and because we've been talking about how white women, Karens, I was trying to Becky, what was it, barbecue Becky,
Right.
Karen, and others, and racist Rachel, and which was my experience here in a grocery store, and Publix, and so all of that, dealing with that, and for us not to connect it to what is going on in the White House. I mean, when you say Kellyanne, did she not weaponize Trump? Did not Omarosa
Yes.
weaponize? And I don't mean to get like I'm like I'm gonna bring up the decimals on that because I'm like, damn, this is our sister. I've had
Yeah.
personal calls. Hey, you want to interview Omarosa? I'm like, well, what's their conversation? And luckily for me, I turned down an opportunity, to get into the Omarosa rhetoric before she became a diehard Trump supporter.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, this woman is not balanced. I'm like, no, I don't want to interview her. I don't want her. I want to archive anything that she's doing. And what I'm doing at Dryer Buzz or any of the platforms that I'm on, no, I don't want to be attached to Omarosa.
Yeah.
And I made that decision very early on when she first put out her book. And I'm like, okay, this woman's not wrapped too tight.
Right.
Okay. And then to see her go on in this Trump thing, I would never get over her saying one day we're gonna have to bow down. And she said bow down to Mr. Trump. She was on the Mary Tyler Moore, you know, Mr. Grant. Remember Mary Tyler Moore never
Yeah,
called
that's
Mr.
right.
Grant
That's
Luke,
right.
right? That's
Right.
a
Right.
form of weaponizing, or you can we're gonna get to all of that
Yeah,
because
but
we
I know.
have to break this down, you guys.
Yeah, and let's contextualize this for a minute, right?
Hmm.
Whiteness is
Hmm.
not just about being white, right? So Omarosa was trying to
That part.
manipulate whiteness, right?
Hmm.
Right? You got the guy who organized Ali Alexander, right? Or Ali Alexander, who organized the initial January 6th protest. Is, I don't know what his background is, but he is a man of color, right? So, but he's trying to weaponize whiteness, right? He's trying to associate with whiteness. So I think that sometimes this is, if we can frame that whiteness is an ideology. We talk about white supremacy is an ideology, whiteness is an ideology, right?
Go, come
And
on,
so
scientists.
so so you can be black, you can be Latinx, you can be Asian, and affiliate with whiteness, right? So and
Adjacent to want
white,
the
right,
desire to be adjacent to
whiteness,
whiteness. Yeah.
right, adjacent, right, and you can be white and reject whiteness, right? How, doesn't mean you don't benefit from it. So but that's not, I really, I just shouldn't have even said that, like, but so because I think Omarosa is a
Do I
is a
need to go
great.
get you a whiteboard? Do I need to go
Yeah,
grab the whiteboard?
I need my white, I need my big post-it note here, exactly, and to draw the circles. um Yes, but to
Mm.
say Omarosa is a great example of sort of the exception that proves the rule. And so the way
Hmm.
that this came into, that we started talking about this, was I was really struck with the images around the protest, that we have multiple stories of men who were there, young men protesting, and somehow their mothers are involved, right? So we have the guy with the Viking horns, who's Q shaman, who got put in jail, and his mommy called the jail and asked could he have organic food. And if y'all, I mean, I know y'all know whiteness is real. Whiteness is that crazy man gets organic food in jail. I don't even understand that. Even but okay. But the one that really struck me was the guy I'm calling zip tie guy, and I think that's mostly what he's called. And there's a him, he's crawling over a row of seats in the house chamber. He's got a fistful of zip ties. His face is covered. We now know he was former Air Force, like 30-ish, right? And there's a person behind him, and it's hard to tell at first, man, woman, whatever, right? But we now know that's a woman, and that was his mother, who was 57 years old, a 57-year-old woman. And there's pictures in the crowd. They went together. When I saw zip tie guy, I'm like, this is the guy I want to know about, because he looks like he is dangerous. He had some sort of sidearm, probably a taser, right? He had these zip ties. He looked military, and he is former military. But who was behind him was his mama, right? And so everybody's making jokes. Oh, he brought his mother and he can't be that. I'm like, no, no, no. Do you understand? Zip tie guy brought a taser and zip ties. His
Do we know if
mother
it was a
brought,
taser or a gun yet?
we don't know. I've heard it said it was a taser, but I don't have any evidence of that.
Let's do
So,
like let's give him the benefit of blackness and assume it
and
was a
say it's a gun.
full assault
He had
weapon.
a weapon. He had a sidearm, right? But his
Yeah.
mother, her sidearm was her son. She went in there, she wanted to cause damage, and she brought her son to be the weapon. It's the same thing with the kid in Wisconsin, Rittenhouse. His mother knew he had a gun, took him there, and strapped him up and sent him off. Go make mama proud, right? So we are seeing the thing that, to me, the thing that is the pandemic has forced us to face, is we're seeing a lot of the stuff. People are saying the quiet part out loud, and we're seeing what's behind the scenes, right? And we're seeing the
Right.
things that people have been saying, right? And we're seeing it to be true. So this idea that the white women are over here, oh, no, this is a historical thing, right? This goes back, and this is just, this goes back to, when I was thinking about this, Yolanda, I'm like, I could go back 6,000 years, right? Do I go back 6,000
You and
years
me
in this
both.
discussion?
You
And
and me both.
I'm like, do we go back to the beginning of patriarchy, right? I mean,
How about
it's,
let's just go back. Let's just go back 50 years. Okay, because otherwise we're gonna lose people. They're gonna say, "Oh,
well,
okay."
it's true. And
Let's just go back 50
yeah,
years.
I want to go back, you know, to 150 years, right? Let's talk
There
about
you
Miss
go.
Anne, right? Because Miss Anne is the one who brings us down to Becky, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and Karen,
So now we're
right?
talking 3, 4 generations. Gotcha,
Yeah, so
gotcha.
right.
Oh, that's right. Because
So
I'm thinking, damn, we're 50.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're 50. No, don't. Yeah, yeah. So yes, let's go back three. Let's go back
Let's go
2 to 3
back three
generations,
generations.
right?
Okay, yeah, let's say it like that. 3 generations. Gotcha.
Which is the idea that of white women exerting
Mm-hmm.
power, feeling powerless in a patriarchy, but exerting power by instigating
Weaponizing the
the men.
patriarchy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they again, it's somebody said, I have a friend, a guy friend, and he loves to quote My Big Fat Greek Wedding, when I don't know if you, it's a fabulous movie, but the mom says, your father may be the head, but I'm the neck, right? And the neck turns the head. And that is the philosophy of the white woman weaponizing the man, right? Is that she's the neck who turns the head, right? So it's like, I've got a pit bull on a leash that I'm going to unleash on others. And sometimes that pit bull just attacks the one with the holding the leash, right? Is oppressing. These men are oppressing. This is not, this is in general, maybe oppressing the white woman, but she's still the fear, right? So this is about safety, and fear but the alternative is worse. So I'm going to step back. I stand back here safe and unleash my
Can we
hound.
call it, because it's not about safety. Safety is the weapon, right?
That's it.
In the
Yeah.
vein of safety. That's
It's the
where
excuse.
all of this comes. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
right. It's like, I don't
yeah.
feel safe. What did the bird lady? What did I don't. I say there's. It's interesting you would say this, Yolanda. There have been so many of these white women calling the cops. I can't even remember all our little terms, right? But the one that was that called that did the fake voice with the bird watcher, right? Cooper, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Coopers, the two Cooper lines coming together, the white Coopers and the black
Mm-hmm.
Coopers coming
And the
together.
Black Coopers.
And
I'm.
yes,
Why didn't nobody pick that up? Because I was like, wait
I
a
don't
minute,
know.
are they related? Because there seemed to be. I really thought it was going to come out that they had probably had some relationship, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you think no way two strangers have this kind of encounter and hostility. It had to be
Yeah.
something. But I like that you do that. The white Cooper line and the black Cooper line. So if we were to go back a couple generations, we'd probably find that there was something there. Go ahead.
We're going to find the common ancestor in the family tree, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so so there we go, right? So you have this claim of, I'm afraid. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing that the police use. I was in fear of my life, right? And so this allows me to be a bully. This allows me to exert power. And this is power over. This is domination. This is abusive power,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we all have a right to exert our personal power. We all are imbued with personal power. We all have a right to exert that power in defense of ourselves. That's not what this is, right? And this is why we all look at it and we know from the outside, right? If you are the object of that, right? And white women, you do this to one another, right? Now, we see it a lot in, like, okay, I'm going to do this to people of color, but also they do it to white supremacy abuses white people. That's the point. Whiteness is used to control white, right? First and foremost, because you've got to have
You
that
know,
in
when
control.
I first saw an example of that, I was in New York, and if anybody knows me, as a mom and a busy person, New York was my escape. If ever I
Mm-hmm.
found a deal, I'm like, I'm going to spend a couple days in New York. And I was on one of the ferries, coming back into the city, and there was this woman, and she was obviously we call her Karen today, but she was
Mm-hmm.
I witnessed I witnessed what is normally reserved for women of color and the interchange. I witnessed her unleash on this man and this other woman, and I was like, okay, that's how they treat each other. We thought it was
Yeah.
just reserved for
Mm-hmm.
us, but
Yep.
and I'm like, oh my God, it's amplified. It's lesser. What we see is lesser and what they have going on in their daily life. I had never really truly, because I just don't have a lot of white people up in my face, right? I had
Mm-hmm.
never truly witnessed being around something so violent,
Yes.
between two people. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I really got a sense of the bullying. Because if you follow my tweets, I've been kind of talking about this bullying thing over the last couple of years, how it is rooted in some, a sense of jealousy, and that's what we want to get to today in this whiteness thing. Because you see, I've been tweeting about unchecked whiteness, right? That's what
Yes.
we're dealing with. We have to unchecked whiteness. But you go from Cooper, what was her first name? Cooper
Amy.
to Miss Ann. Amy
Yep.
Cooper to Miss Ann.
Yep.
Um, and this disguise in the veil of safety, how they're able to not pull the weapon themselves, but
Yes.
have somebody else bring the weapons into the situation. So go ahead, continue. I can't do nothing but
Yes.
listen
So
like everybody else.
so understanding that this is part of white womanhood, right? Which then wants to claim all womanhood, right? And that comes out of like Victorian England and the Enlightenment prior to that in Victorian England. This idea that there was this attempt. It was really a positive attempt of of Western women to try to be treated better, to have women and children treated better, because mostly for most of Western history and culture,
Mm-hmm.
women of all levels and children were thought to really not be fully formed human beings, to not have full souls, to not really experience emotions and feelings as men did. So this is a relatively new concept. We're going to say in the last several hundred years that women are even fully human, right? And then that children are fully human. And so this was the excuse for men to abuse women and children, is that they're not really human, and that they're not fully, and that their souls are somehow not fully formed, so God
So are
doesn't
you
hold them
saying
accountable,
out of
right?
that? Okay,
So out
so
of
are you
this,
saying
so
out
we
of
said,
that?
out of this response that says no, women need to be treated right, white women said we're the keepers of virtue and decency, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
sold that message. That's how suffrage was sold here, right? This is how suffrage was sold in England and in America, is that women need to be allowed to vote because they're the keepers of decency and goodness. But they said white women are the keepers of decency and
Right, because
goodness.
they then drew the line because the whole safety and purity
Right.
thing. Now that gives them the opportunity to become the oppressor
Right.
and leave all the other women out.
and
Okay, go
that
ahead.
and that in fact that men are animalistic and brutal, and that they need the softening effect of women, right? Rather, so
Mm.
basically white women saying we're going to claim all the humanity and strip it off of everybody else. Now if you are black or indigenous or whatever, that you ain't even got to get up into this conversation yet about fully human, right? So but the white women are like, we're going to take all the humanity, right? And then but this makes the men now less than human, right? And so they're then allowed to go out, and but they're like, but we need them to be brutal because we need to be protected. We need them to be warriors, and we need them to do the ugly things that we don't want to do or that we can't do,
Were
right?
were men were men part of this convincing in order to
Mhm.
maintain their prominence? Because there was always the fear that when women do all of this, look at the narrative of Amazon women, right?
Right.
So men, for that matter, comes into the safety narrative of we do all the other stuff that you shouldn't have to do because you're
Right.
pure, right?
And then that gives men the excuse, right, is that we can go out and do all this thing because we're doing it in the name of protecting our women and children and our culture and society and decency. And so when you get that as sort of baked in to what white womanhood is, right, than the white woman to exert and to even it's like it's a division. It's what's called bifurcation. It's a bifurcation of human emotion, right? Which is like
Mhm.
I'm going to project outward all my aggression, right? Men get to be aggressive, right? And then women get to be feeling. And so women are not allowed to be
Well,
aggressive.
let me
Men aren't
ask you
allowed to
this,
be
because
feeling.
Leonard is on with us, one of our leading men.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard is on with us. So in that, white women have gotten pushback at every turn of trying
Yeah.
to be the face of purity, right? And
Right.
we're gonna go back to Miss Ann. We got to go all the way back to. We got to go back and bring Sojourner into this.
Mm-hmm.
Who challenged it that we know of. That
Yeah.
there's been pushback at every turn of the century, of every century. How is it that they came into 2020? Okay, we're
Yeah.
looking back at 2020, y'all. This is the second show of 2021. How is it that still in 2020 and coming into 2021, they still keep trying to apply this narrative that whiteness is better and white women is the
Yeah.
beholder of
Yeah.
purity and morality?
Right. And so that again becomes something cultural. And Mr. Jones, I'm going to address your point in a minute. About dehumanization, I'll come back to that. But it's again, it gets culturally baked in, right? And so then Christianity becomes the tool for promoting decency. And this is why, this is why in the period of chattel property, right, enslavement, that enslaved people were allowed to be converted to Christianity because it felt like it would be improving human decency. So then Christian, this is why we got the whole white evangelical. I shouldn't even open that door involved in this, right? But let's look at, I think the prime example, because we're talking about Trump. You're like, did Karen cause the coup, right? Let's look at Ivanka Trump, and she is the prime example of this experience of a person who she weaponized her father from the jump. She's supported him. She's kept him propped up, right? She married into a
She
family.
weaponized him in every episode of Celebrity Apprentice.
And exactly. And then she married a man whose husband, whose father was a Trump like person. So I don't know what Jared Kushner's like, but his father, went to jail, right? And was abusive toward his own family. So anyway, she partnered with someone in that, right? And apparently they made the deal. This is the latest stuff coming out, that between her and Jared, that when the time came, she would be the one who would run for office. She would be the political person. So she's the one with the political aspirations, and she manages to sit back, right? She stays just close enough, right, to turn the head, right, and try to maintain that pure. I mean, look at, she's just like, oh, just not a hair out of place, always there, lurking around, trying to get into conversation with world leaders, and world leaders going, excuse me, who are you, right? I mean, she's inviting herself to Biden's inauguration. I don't think you're invited, Ivanka. I really don't. But the point
Shouldn't she
is
be
that
on like a no-fly list and a
she needs to be
security
on a
list?
no-fly list, but
How
she's
is she
looking.
not? How is
She
she
thinks
not
she thinks she's untouched in
sequestered
this.
somewhere?
Right. She thinks she's untouched in this, right? She thinks she's untouched in this, but she's not, right? Because she was like, I'm going to use all of this, right? I'm going to use my father. I'm going to use his money. I'm going to use, she kept his businesses going when he was being a crook, when he was a crook and incompetent. She's the one, right? She and her brothers, but primarily Ivanka, was driving so much of his public persona, right? For her own business, for her own standing, rather than just going out and doing it herself. She appears to be a very competent and bright young woman, right? But no, so that's the kicker of all this, is that it doesn't have to be this way. These women could just go do it, right? But it's being embedded in a system. And so we have the ultimate weaponizer. Ivanka is the ultimate weaponizer. She fought with Melania over who was going to control Trump. She fought with her, and Melania lost, right? And so, I mean, that's a battle of white women. We have Kellyanne Conway, Melania, and Ivanka in there. But I want to go back, and I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm rambling a little bit. I want to go back and address Leonard, Mr. Jones's point about he didn't feel that white women and children were dehumanized. I'm referring to actually the science and sociology. We didn't call it that time, but the science of the time. And I'm talking about like in the 1400s, 1500s. We're talking about, centuries ago, that literally it was in the science of the time that women were not fully human. So I'm when I say that dehumanized, I'm meaning like in the literature of the practice of the culture in Europe, in European culture, that women and children. This is why there was not particularly children were not fully formed, but also women were not fully formed. So that I can't give you the citation on that, but that's what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not saying that they were equally dehumanized or more dehumanized than women of color. I'm not at all. But that was literally the thought process in science, was that women did not have full souls, right? There's also religious teaching. This was the same, even more applied to anybody who was non-European. So that's what I mean when I talk about dehumanized. Is
And
like
he
from a
said
scientific term.
Ivanka seems a lot more aggressive. She is very aggressive. You would go back to the shocking factor to me was during the inauguration when you had the president and first lady dance and you had the vice president. Ivanka grabbed her husband and came further down the stage than either of them. I'm like,
Yep.
girl, this is not your inauguration. But she has her deeds in mind, and they are not good deeds, and we need to make sure that they go away. Pure and simple.
Yes. So let's look at this. So we've got Trump surrounded really by we got Hope Hicks, right, who
By
was his
women,
communications
yeah.
director, surrounded by women. Kellyanne Conway, I think some of us forget. I know I forget all the time. She ran his campaign. She was the first woman to run a
Hmm.
successful presidential campaign. She identified him as someone who could win. She and Bannon and all that, Stephen Miller, they all got together and said, "This is our guy." She ran the campaign. She ran him for a period of time, right? And so we have, so when you look at those crowds of men, although there were women and even people took their children, right, to that protest or to that riot, and even riot to that insurrection. Um, but it's really, this is not happening without the tacit approval of women. Now let's flip the script and let's look at who was in the Capitol being attacked. And we have, and who's fighting back. We've got Stacey Abrams here. We have, Nancy Pelosi. There's a white woman trying to fight the fight. We have the Squad. We have AOC. We know that Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Rashid. I can't think of her first name.
Let's go back. Let's go
So
back to Nancy because we're in this day about. I'm still torn about Nancy as to how much
well,
she subscribes to whiteness.
yeah, and I will say that she just did. Somebody sent me a
I like
TikTok
that
with
sound you
her.
just made.
Yeah, I'm trying to I'm trying to
I
throw
mean,
somebody in there.
same thing with Elizabeth.
Yes,
When
but
Elizabeth
I
should
know
very well
I will
be
put
part of this too.
I will put Warren above Pelosi in at least awareness of whiteness. But yeah, Nancy Pelosi is
But is
absolutely,
it okay? Is there some innocence in whiteness? Like if we look at Elizabeth Warren, if we look at
yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, in the position, long term positions that they have held in governing, um, I'm not trying to be that black person to ask you if there's some
Do it.
goodness in whiteness, but Angela,
Well,
okay, to
I
that
one of
point,
one of my brothers said to me one day, year ago, and even before the whole pandemic and Black Lives Matter, he says, "I really think that white people are defective." I said, "You know what? I
we
won't
know
fight you on that.
we know how
I won't fight you on
y'all
that."
as a family.
Oh, our
But see,
family,
we
we
know how
have,
you guys as a family are working through this.
yeah,
But and thank you so much for allowing us to begin to have this conversation. And I think let me make one more adjustment, guys. And again, I
yeah.
apologize, and I don't apologize for a lot.
But
But we
when
had some tech difficulties. I'm having to go live from my phone, and it's like, wait. all these things are going on my phone. I didn't even put my D&D on, so hopefully I don't get a phone call. We're
Right.
talking today
But no,
with Angela Stalkup. You can at her at Angela at her. Listen, y'all, at her at Angela Stalkup.
at
Angela
me.
and I have been co-hosting this podcast called Leading Women now, probably about 2 years now, and just within the last year, of course, we've taken on some in-depth, different and in-depth topics. And we got a whole thing going on over there on Twitter. You know, we come over here and go live on Facebook, and our timeline goes, what? There's a whole thing going on over there on Twitter. And I'm particularly, and Angela and I are both engaged in this conversation about whiteness, because when you arrive at a point where 80% are like, okay, Black lives do matter, right? You've got to stop and say, okay, well, what's going on with the white? We don't say white lives, it's whiteness. And Angela, go back to the beginning, because you were trying to give us what whiteness is. You know, if you
Hmm.
had to think about culture, like we can instantly, what it means to be black and black culture and so
Hmm.
forth. Um, and we're trying to figure out how many people do white people lead with whiteness. And we also talked about, there are those that are others that love to be the solitary in the group, the only black person hanging, like the only couple of black people that were at the coup. you know
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
Diamond and Silk. I'm like, has anybody checked on Diamond and Silk? We talked about Omarosa. People who double down, just trying to be adjacent to whiteness. And we've been calling in the black community self-hate, but I never really got with the whole self-hate thing,
Yeah.
because listen to you, we talk about self-hate. There's a whole lot of white people walking around with self-hate, right?
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
look at where we are, and I don't mean like hating themselves for being white. I mean, it's like this thing, we're trying to put this whiteness into a box and call it out. There's an article that came out about, hey, let's stop calling everything out and start calling some things in.
Hmm.
So we are at a critical time in history where, we've got generations coming behind us trying to figure out how in the hell did y'all navigate in and around each other. And these young people, they need a language by which to understand this thing, and the language that we use is not working for them, because they, first of all, they only speak in freaking emojis. Okay,
It's true. It's
so
true.
I don't know
We need
I don't know what emoji you use for
Mhm.
whiteness, but we
The little
right
white
now,
thumb.
congressional hearing going on. I mean, yeah, it's like we got to talk about whiteness. Okay, we got to a point. Black Lives Matter. Everybody else is like, well, what about us? Okay, well, y'all should come on in this thing. But whiteness, y'all, we running into it. People, it was so prevalent. You couldn't even like go out to the store without being on guard. That you're gonna have to deal with an anti-masker, and that's again
Hmm.
adjacent to whiteness, because black people put the mask on. Like, I'm not trying to be aggressive with my mask. I'm not trying to send you a message
Well,
through my mask.
and if you
So,
want to, that's and that if you look at the anti-maskers, right? This is a great example
mm,
of white versus white, right? This is whiteness battling for authority, right? Because part of whiteness is about having absolute control, but also about not having the rules apply. So it's about an entitlement, right? We're seeing it. So it's like, okay, maybe masks are fine, but I shouldn't be forced to wear one, right? And so then I'm pro mask. That's just the example. I To me,
mm,
the example of this is what's happening today, yesterday and today, when they put metal detectors in the House of Representatives. And now people who were attacked, who had to hide from a crowd, are refusing to go through the metal detectors and literally getting into pushing matches with the police. Again, nothing happening to them. White representatives, white Congress people are fighting the police over going through um, a metal detector because they think the rules shouldn't apply to them. That is whiteness. And so when you have, this is where I say whiteness is trying to dominate whiteness. So you have the anti-masker or the person that refuses to walk through the metal detector. You're like, dudes, this is for your own good. This is not just for the good of others. This
mm,
is for your own good. I mean, everybody who stormed the Capitol and refused to wear a mask because they were anti-mask, you're stupid, because now the FBI has a picture of your face and they're coming to get you. They said, we're coming for you. I mean, if you're going to do crimes, wear a mask. Okay, you don't have to wear it for coronavirus. Wear it to cover your damn face, right? Anyway, the the point is that this is like who gets to be in charge, right? And so the fear is they're not going to be there, that someone is going to dominate them, right? And so this is where you end up with a projection of of emotion and projection of intention, right? So this is how you can have white rioters and insurrectionists standing in the middle of the Capitol going, but we're not rioting, we're not vandalizing, as they tear shit up. They're like, well, look at that's right there, you just broke that. But that's not vandalism, right? We're not vandalizing, and that is the disconnect of saying that whiteness will project its own inner monologue on others, right? So then you say, oh no, but they're going to do, because the thought is, if I was oppressed the way I'm trying to oppress someone else, here's what I would do. And this is where, white people need to be very lucky that most oppressed peoples don't reply or don't respond
And
in
we
kind.
know to call it whiteness because they didn't call nobody else on and let nobody else know the coup was happening.
That's it. Who did they call, right? Who got the
Right,
call?
right.
But
And we call it whiteness because Karen didn't call nobody else. She called. I mean, so if anybody wants to come for us, it's like why is it called whiteness? It's called whiteness because we're looking at the aftermath of it, and in the aftermath, we know that it was all white. And another thing too, there are Congress people that are coming down with coronavirus because in that they had to hunker down and go into those
yeah,
safe spaces that no one is supposed to know about. Uh, Coronavirus was spread. Okay, so now because your seat is over here, and the evacuation plan is for you to go with this group over here. Guess what? Coronavirus.
yeah.
And so it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, y'all. So somebody please keep an eye on while we are live, because last week, think
It
about it.
always,
It said a week ago today. Last
yeah,
week we got off the air, and the coup was happening. And
exactly.
so somebody keep an eye.
Please, if
Do
something's
let us
happening,
know.
let us know.
Um, I
Well,
as I thought about the Angela, I was like, let me grab my device and keep an eye on the news timeline.
yeah,
Because they are live literally right now
yeah,
on
yeah,
trying to figure out this impeachment, and they want to do an impeachment so that Trump will not be able to seek any kind of
yeah,
re-election. And believe it or not, they're still trying to defend this
yeah.
man. And but anyway, we're talking about Trump. We're talking about all this stuff going on, but we're really talking about the fact that we came into 2021 and nobody's really tying this to how white women use ordinary things to weaponize. And what is it? What's driving this? This is what I want to know. Is it to their own benefit? Because we've seen them vote against their interests, right? It's
Hmm.
like, what benefit do they get out of this? Is it just a satisfaction? Because they clearly, in that they wanted to bring their own equality, but then they saw that they too could possess an oppressive nature, right? And impart that on people. Did they lose sight somewhere along the way, legitimately, or
Hmm.
hell, are they just crazy? I don't know.
Well,
Because
I'll
what
go
is the
crazy.
benefit to this?
Oh, well, it's preserving the system, right? And so now we're back to Isabel
What
Wilkerson
system?
and
Which
caste,
which system though?
the caste system.
Is
So
it caste?
yes, I think it's preserving the system where they feel
But
like
they
they have
hell, they don't
power.
even benefit from caste system. So
But
is it the caste system?
but they do
Or
benefit from it. They benefit.
okay,
I'm gonna say they
and
do
what? Come
benefit.
on, explain.
How is everybody that walked up into that Capitol, why were they not gunned down? There's benefit in whiteness, right? And there's benefit to white women in
No, no, I'm
whiteness,
not saying whiteness because we know that the women were there urging them on.
right?
But for the most part, we know that okay, and we see it all the time. Police don't fight back when they're white criminals. They
Mm-hmm.
run, they flee.
Right.
They don't fight. Police don't run into situations where people are armed and so what. In that, it had to be pointed out that there were women in the crowd besides
Mm-hmm.
Onion Lady, right? She weaponized a freaking onion. They
Oh,
tased me, girl. Ain't nobody tased you.
onion
You got an
lady.
onion in your face.
Wow.
Right, onion lady, right. So what again I'm asking was it just the joy of going home and seeing what they could cause? Or
Yeah.
what is it? I mean,
Yeah.
look, think
No,
about the woman who continued to live out her life after lying about her safety and Emmett Till died. Think about all the white women,
mhm.
and there's a whole museum, the lynching museum, right? Remember, you watched live
Mhm.
as I did a walkthrough, and you saw the shock on my face when I started reading those
Yep.
stories. And in the stories, subscribed on the wall, is
Yep.
how this person came upon a white woman
Yep.
and now they're dead. I need to know
Yep.
what the hell do they benefit from doing
Yeah.
what it is that they do?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Well, and it is, and so they think they're benefiting. So let me put it that way. They think they're benefiting from a system, and they fear being ostracized by the community and the system. And back to the
Does it
lynching,
come back to the purity and morality, or
yes,
is
and
that
it's
what
like,
that
and
was?
yes,
That
and so if I,
museum exists.
yeah,
Damn, that's
no,
crazy.
so you think
Okay,
about it. What
one
it lynching?
question
What did?
then:
Go ahead.
if they're trying to ascribe to purity and morality, you talked earlier about the European. Who the hell are they trying to become? Who's in their mind's eye? I'm gonna do this to all these people because, okay, if you want to go with the caste system, who the hell to them is at the top that they need to take down? Who the hell are they trying to take down?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I'm asking a
They
question.
Right. So yeah, it's a good question, and I'm thinking about it, and I think they don't even know, right? They don't
Wow.
they I don't
Yeah.
think they know. They just know they don't want to be
Is
at
it
the bottom.
European women? Is it
Yeah.
Russian women? Is it
No.
German women? Is it
All right.
who is
It's the
Asian
and
women?
I was going to say it's an idealized woman that Ivanka looks like, right? It's look at these Republican women. That's a white
Okay, but
ideal.
Ivanka's mama is not a white woman.
Well, and that's it. See, that's
She might subscribe to whiteness,
and
but
this
she
is
ain't white.
this is the fuzziness of whiteness, right? Is that whiteness is a constantly changing definition of who gets to be white. And I think this is also something that we have to really think about, right? And that it used to
Okay.
be that even if you were Southern European, you weren't really considered white, right? So if you were Italian or Greek, you weren't white. And then we've expanded and expanded. And then if you were Slavic, right? So Trump's women,
Mm-hmm.
are from Eastern Europe. So if you were Slavic or if you were Jewish, right, that you aren't really white. And over the years, as people moved up, they moved into whiteness, right? They've moved into whiteness. And so there is
That's
some
a whole Western and American thing. If
yeah,
you're here,
it is American.
you need to choose
Yeah,
whiteness.
it's American because in Europe and the rest of the world, you tribe up based on your country, or your ethnic group within, because Europe is full of ethnic groups, right? We think of
Mm-hmm.
of them as homogenous. It's not at all. Look at the United Kingdom. Look at just England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
These
Mm-hmm.
people know who the others are, and they've got tensions, right? I wouldn't know, right? I'm not gonna know. I might recognize a little bit of an accent, but to me, they're all from like England, right? So, but
Mm-hmm.
they have their own internecine tribal conflicts. It's only in America that you have to identify as white, right? And then we could get all into to the issues of class as well. So a lot of it is just trying to be at the top of whatever the pyramid is that's presented to you, right? So to be so if you are wherever you are, you like, I just need to be at the top of this pyramid. Now, what
It's
you find is you
it's
get to the
funny
top
to
of that
me
pyramid.
though. Well, here's the funny part in trying to understand and describe whiteness to us.
Mm-hmm.
We're all sitting back, like listening to all the things you had to pull from in order to identify whiteness,
Yeah.
all this stuff that ain't white,
Mm-hmm. Well,
right?
but that's
We're gonna
it.
stop right there on the pyramid, which we know that ain't white at all, right?
Right, because whiteness takes everything else. All right,
Takes
and
it
whiteness
all, just
it takes
just out here taking
it
every damn thing.
it takes everything. It's a colonizer, right? It colonizes and it takes because really, what is it, right? What is it? And honest to God, whiteness exists in only is you're only white if there's something else, right? It's white and
Mm,
non-white, right? This is how
mm,
whiteness exists. So this whole thing, I think this is so interesting. There's a whole theory about these people, particularly in this in the pandemic, who go into Target and act a fool, and they're videotaped and they get yelled at. And so I saw
mhm,
some social scientists say that whiteness does not exist without an audience. Whiteness has to have an audience, right? That it so
ooh,
and that they go in to these stores because they don't have any way to perform their whiteness. When they're at home with their family, they don't get to perform the dominance, the dom sub, the power struggle, the I'm better than. They can't do it in their own, or they've done it in their own home and it's not
mhm.
fulfilling anymore. So they have to go into the public eye and
Well,
record it.
there's a whole other level of abuse going on in the home because
Yeah.
we've got to get to a point where we consider this a form of abuse. That's what I was saying.
Yes.
That's what I was saying all of 2019. It's like to raise a person to have that kind of hate and vitriol.
Yeah.
These moms
Mhm.
are weaponizing these boys, their son, these men. These men. That's a form of abuse, and we've not yet called it
Yes.
out. Well, guess what? Whiteness is getting checked in 2021. Angela,
Mhm.
we said an hour, girl, and
Yeah.
we are 4 minutes over because we were
Well,
actually a few minutes late. Um, I can
I
tell
want
you
to.
want to keep going.
I want to keep going with one more point, and
Yeah.
I can go another 10 minutes, right? So if you
Okay.
can, because I want to say we've been talking about the past. I want to project into the future, though, right? Like,
Yes. Yes. Do
so
some forecasting here.
let's look at where this is headed, right? By 2050, and like literally, I just thought, what the heck year is it? All right, so less than 30 years now, right? So hopefully, we're both going to
Mhm.
be alive and strong and wonderful, right? When we're 80, that a United States will become a majority minority country, right? That the population will be more non-white than white, right? That white people will fall into the minority by population count. And this is what we're seeing, and we've known this. We've known this, been projecting since the year 2000 of when we were going to cross that threshold. This is why you have the what they call the full quiver movement of all these white people having 5 billion children. They got 15 kids, the Duggars. It's because they want to make sure there's enough white people, right? So understand, if you're into the Duggars, they're promoting whiteness. They're personally trying to make a lot of white people, right? So there is, but it's a numbers game. I'm gonna hat tip to
It
Stacey
is.
Abrams, who's like, everything's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. Numbers are it's done, right? The whole planet we on the planet we've moved to where white is no longer the majority, right? We have over a billion people in China. We have over a billion people in India. So United States, Europe, they're shrinking, shrinking, shrinking in white population. And so by hook or by crook, right? Whiteness has got to face its day. And so there's always been this question is as we have these populations, right? As we have this growing non-white population, to use a different term, is our other, so for example, the thought was that Hispanic Latino would adopt whiteness because there's actually, white
And
Hispanics,
they
but
do. And
and that they would
they
move
came,
into whiteness,
girl.
right? And so
Okay,
the
but wait.
idea is whiteness going to go away even when it's not just dominated by white people. And so this is where I'm saying
Got a
let's
question.
project
Can you
this.
hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Where in the Latino, because they double down on whiteness.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But are they then counted in the numbers? You say it's a numbers game.
Mhm.
Are they welcomed in, or are they considered otherness? And help me out with that.
Right now they're considered other, and actually the Republican strategy going into 2016 was to say let's bring the Latinx voter, let's bring the Latino voter. Hold on, I got a low
Mm-hmm.
battery there. into the white fold and make them Republicans because of particularly this of religious beliefs, right? And then Trump showed up and was anti-immigrant and messed up that plan. And it will be a long time till they can try to
Well,
execute that plan again.
they still
Still
voted.
vote
They just weren't
Republican,
invited to the
right?
coup. They
Right.
weren't
They're not
invited to the
invited to the
coup though.
right. So,
Right,
but my
right.
point
Y'all weren't
is that
invited to the coup.
yeah, then you know.
And I'm in my
it's like,
feelings
go
with
ahead.
that. But no,
Go.
I'm in my feelings with that because we black people keep trying to do this black and brown,
Mm-hmm.
black and all this. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, listen, not 2021. It's black.
It's
Heart stop.
black.
We're
Yeah.
black. Heart stop. We're not doing the ands and this. No,
And see this.
not 20. I'm gonna throw Belinda's comment up
Yeah.
there, and then we're gonna get ready to wrap up. We're gonna have to do a
Yeah.
part 2 of this because Angela has come through. Y'all read Belinda's comment because it's like, hey
I
y'all, notice who
I
is pulling
I
this
gotta.
country together and making the hard calls. Watch out now, Vice President Harris, Stacey, Nancy
Mm-hmm.
Pelosi,
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Waters, others. Watch out now. And
Yeah.
go on. And her comment is on the screen. We got to get ready to end, guys. We've been trying to get this
Yeah.
thing into an hour, and so that we can go on to the day. I don't have cookies. That's on the list to bring home some barbecue because I've got to ramp up soap for Valentine's Day. So I'm gonna move all this broadcast stuff out the way, bring back in the soap stuff. Angel and I will be here with you each and every Wednesday. And so thank you guys so much for giving us an amazing year last year. Happy New Year. We happy,
Mm-hmm.
happy 2021. And we haven't had a chance to say that on here. Thank you everybody for joining. And thanks for helping us get through these technical difficulties this episode. Hey, listen, we did start. Last announcement, and we got to run. A YouTube channel just for Leading Women Weekly. Please go over and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we don't know what's going on here with Facebook, but we definitely want to archive some of this great content over on YouTube. Leading Women Weekly, our YouTube channel. That's where we will be this year and going forward, and so forth. And listen, you're watching the replay. Hold your phone up to that QR code. Just take the other device and do like this. Okay, and the website for Shop Dryer Bus is going to pop up on your phone, and you guys can go and check it out there. And don't forget to catch Angela and myself on Clubhouse. Y'all are doing the Clubhouse thing, 8 to 10 each morning, Tuesday through Saturday. We are there around the table feeding our dreams. Okay, so and this is Angela's dream, honey. To come on here and tell y'all about whiteness.
To come and talk crap about white people. This is my dream.
Look,
this is my dream.
Email her. Okay. All right, Angela. We'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.